Okay, so hi everybody. I guess we should start for real this time. If you missed the first version, it was hilarious. So my name is Phil, and I'm the founder of Blokur, which is a blockchain-based platform for creative rights. And I'm going to talk very briefly about how blockchain technology can be used to solve problems and open up new opportunities in music and in other creative industries. Before I do that, though, I thought I'd give you a brief insight into my background.
Sorry, I think you need to get closer to the mic.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I like to wave my hands around, makes it difficult. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself now. So I started out in music almost exactly 10 years ago in record companies before embarking on a career as a recording artist and subsequently starting my own independent record company. And after 8 years on the creative side of the music business, I've become increasingly frustrated with its ability or its failure to deliver value for creators, and also its failure to exploit the full potential of new technology. This is, of course, the era of MP3, etc. And personally, I'd achieved many of the things I dreamt of doing when I was a teenager. I toured all over the world on TV, on radio, and made almost $0 doing any of this. And so I started to think about what I could do to make a difference. So I went back to school, total change of direction, studied for an MBA at Oxford University, and a year later found myself consulting on the release of Radiohead singer Tom York's album Tomorrow's Modern Boxes, which was released through BitTorrent, the first album to be commercially released through BitTorrent. And also on release actually for the new Radiohead album, which I'm hoping is going to come out someday soon. Shortly after that, I read an article which really inspired me called Bitcoin for Rockstars by somebody called D.A. Wallach. And ever since then, been on this blockchain journey, which began for real, I suppose, last year when I conceived and led the development of Ujo, which was a prototype blockchain music platform, which is a collaboration with Imogen Heap, just won her second Grammy. And Blokur is a continuation of that journey. So I guess it's fair to assume that everybody here has been touched at least a little bit by the hype of blockchain that's happened over the last 6 months, with amazing hype in the press and everywhere else. As you can see, music has not been excluded from this. Music has had just as much hype as any other industry. To the extent that, you know, I've been approached from the indiest of indie pop and rock artists to the biggest of major record companies, all curious about what is blockchain technology, what's it all about. So what is it that makes them so curious? Well, maybe a good place to start is with some of the problems that blockchain might be able to solve in creative industries. And if I was to sum this up this challenge up in a really simplistic way from a high level, I say that while we've created brilliant tools to allow creators to engage directly with their audiences, the flow of value back to the creator from those interactions is much less efficient. And to sum that up in a small example, imagine that you're going to upload your music video to YouTube. And before breakfast, it might have been watched in 150 different countries. But if you want to collect all of the money due from that video, you're going to have to engage an intermediary in every single one of those 150 countries. Digging beneath the surface of why this might be the case. In music in particular, the challenges begin right in the core DNA, in the information that tells you who owns what in music. And after 100 years of mergers and acquisitions, with the advent of remixing and sampling and all these new ways of creating content, now a piece of music, single piece of music, might have dozens and dozens of stakeholders. And here's an example that doesn't even cover the recording. This is just the song. These aren't performers, this isn't record companies, this is just the song. And the crazy thing about this is that there's no definitive source of this information. All the record companies, publishers, rights organizations have their own view of what the correct version of this information might be. And if they don't agree, the chances are you won't get paid. Or if you're really lucky, you'll be the subject of a lawsuit. And so you can probably imagine that if it's hard to identify who these stakeholders are, then it's even harder to try and pay them all. And this is an example of how value flows through the music industry. Again, this is just the song for a particular use case. And this shows you what it takes to pay all of the right people when a piece of music is used. And it takes up to 3 or 4 years for songwriters to get paid. And $2 billion every year leaks out through all these processes of intermediation, data reconciliation, all these people in the middle. The obvious question then is, what does blockchain have to do with any of this? And I think blockchain has 2 things to offer in particular. First is decentralized ledger of creative rights that provides more accurate, easily accessible information. The second thing is an automated licensing and payment system based on smart contracts that can radically improve efficiency and reduce the need for all of these manual process and intermediaries that you saw on the last slide. And you can break this down into 4 main areas of functionality. The first is the ledger part that I described, so creators publishing works on their stake in works on blockchain. And second, so people are then also registering use policies for works, saying, I'm happy for my music to be used in this circumstance, given these fees, etc. And anybody can use the music as long as they meet the terms of the policies. And this is a fundamental shift in the way that music is licensed, that is a much more open, free way that says, let's come up with all the new ideas that are going to get the music industry back to $30 billion a year, not the $16 billion a year that it is today, because it's halved over the last 15 years. And it's made possible by a smart contract that transfers the right to use music on the receipt of the appropriate compensation. Third part, at the core of the automation piece, is delivering payments automatically to the stakeholders based on the information on that ledger. And finally, the idea is to create an open platform where basically you're building the pipes through which value and data can flow, and then other people can build services, platforms on top to meet consumer needs, business needs, etc. And the exciting bit about blockchain in this context is that it's shared infrastructure that everybody uses. So I mentioned Ujo before, and there's going to be a talk about Ujo later, so I won't go into extreme detail, but here is a little glimpse. And the intention here was to demonstrate the beginnings of the functionality that I've just described through the example of a single song test case. And this is a prototype that was developed in partnership with Consensus, back end written by Simon de Riviere and Mike Golden on the contract, John McDowell on the front end. And as I've just described, what we have here is a set of policies that are attached to the song. And each different type of music use might have a different set of splits, different set of information. And in this case, we can see that if we go to the download, we can see that Imogen is going to receive around 90% of the income. And that's because she's the songwriter, the label, the publisher, the artist, the producer. She did all of these things. The other people who are getting an interest are non-featured artists who've already been featured, paid a fee as a session musician, for example. And the way that we did this proof of concept was to allow people to come and make a download of this piece of music. This is using an in-browser wallet developed by Christian Lundquist. So all I have to do here is type in a password, and the download's going to start. The ETH price is updated live. If you've been following it, you'll notice that the price has changed a lot since then. This is like a $1 for an ETH instead of $10. Download starts. And then I can then view a transparent list of all the transactions that have taken place. These are all the people that have bought the song, or have bought stems, or have done whatever. And this could also be people buying catalogs of rights, for example. This is a ledger of ownership of rights.